Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trailokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidyad Ravindam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So before we get into the text, let me share with you how we study texts with Swamiji. So we would all have a copy of the text, and in the Chinmaya mission, you would have the Devanagari, the Sanskrit, and then he would have a transliteration into Roman text for those who did not read Devanagari. Then underneath that was an English translation. Sometimes even he would take the Sanskrit and break it down word for word. So in a camp, he would chant the first line and then we would chant it after it. Then he'd chant the next line and then we would chant it after him, so that we had the shlokas in our own mouths. And there are lots of reasons for this, because it goes into the memory, and Sanskrit itself is a vibrational language. As he got older and his eyes would fail, he would have the brahmacharis chant the first line, and then we would all chant after it. And we'd all, the white people would stumble over the Devanagari and the transliteration. But he did want us to chant it. Now, he did not want us to take notes. Does Carol allow people to take notes?
I think some people sometimes take notes. Yes. Yeah. I don't recall. It's been a long time since I've been to a class.
From what I understand, today, Chinmaya mission, people take lots of notes. But Swamiji did not want us to take notes. He said no. So we would chant it, and then you're present, because this is what's called a Shabda Pramana. Shabda means sound or words. Pramana is a means of knowledge. So as we break open the knowledge, the idea is your jnanam, vijnanam cha. Your understanding and your direct experience are to come together at the same time. So what do? This is what the psychologists would call a gestalt. There's the teacher. There's the student. And the scripture is a setu, it's a bridge, whereby the vision of the teacher can be transmitted to the student. So the student must be open and receptive for that. So if it works, we put you in the mind state of being able to see who you are. Oh, aham brahmasmi, I'm Brahman, I'm not a person. And then we tell you what you're experiencing when you're experiencing. So your knowledge and your understanding come together at the same time. That's the underlying methodology of Jnana Yoga and our scriptural study. I don't know if I've ever gone through that with you folks before. Have you heard this before?
I think so.
Yeah. Is this new for you, Nilan?
Yes.
Yeah. So once again, if your father would like to look at the text, maybe try to chant along with Puneet. I don't care if you stumble. It would be of value, but don't go reading on ahead. Now, don't have to worry about this text. There's no commentary. But it is part of the tradition, and this is the way they did it in the Himalayas, where they would have the text just in the Sanskrit. The guru would chant a line, and then the shishas would chant a line, and then the guru would chant another line, and the shishas would chant another line, and they break it open. That's this ancient tradition. The only difference is 1,000 years ago, the language of instruction would have been Sanskrit. Today, up in the Himalayas, the language of instruction is probably Hindi. Swamiji, his language of instruction was English, which was such a blessing for those of us. So it's up to you. If you want to read along with the text, be my guest. All right. So does anyone remember where we are in our first chapter this week?
We're on page 30, number 33, on page 30.
Page 30, number 33. Will you help us out, please, Puneet?
My page 30 has number 60.
Okay, well, it's first chapter.
33.
Yes.
Chapter 1, verse 33.
Annam prano mano buddhi anande anandashcheti panchate koshastai ravrita swatma vismritya sansritim vrajet. The 5 sheets of the self are those of the food, the vital air, the mind, the intellect, and bliss. Enveloped in them, it forgets its real nature and becomes subject to transmigration.
So, first of all, let's get one thing clear. The self does not transmigrate. Vedanta thunders the doctrine of ajati, unborn. So I usually use like a glass of water or a cup of tea as the example. The glass is like the gross body, the stula sharira. The water in the glass is like the subtle body, the sukshma sharira. You are like the space in the glass. So what is reincarnation? If I get a crack in the glass, you'll have to use your imagination. And I pour the water from one glass into another, that's broken, throw it away. That's reincarnation. But what happens to the space? Nothing. So it is the subtle body that moves from embodiment to embodiment. How and why? The physical body is essentially an instrument for garnering experience for the satisfaction of desires. Those desires reside in the subtle body. They're left actually in what we call the karana sharira, the causal body. Some scriptures include that in the subtle body. Some break it apart as a third area. It's basically our vasanas. And when the body dies, you go up to some particular loka, you hang out there, you kind of live out all the rest of the unresolved stuff from a particular life. And then impelled by the vasanas, boom, in you go into another body. The Buddhists, some Zen Buddhists, like in Japan, they say 40 days. That's all the time you get between incarnations. I have no idea. Now, you don't have to believe in the doctrine of reincarnation to get value from Vedanta. Let me give an example. So, Daniel, where did you grow up?
Los Angeles.
And how long ago was that? A better question. When did you leave Los Angeles?
1991.
And how long had you been there?
About 17 and a half, 18 years.
And where did you move to?
Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Yep, Berkeley.
Oh my God. Did you go to school there?
I did indeed.
Oh my God. And after Berkeley, then what did you do?
I moved to San Francisco.
Oh my God. Crazy.
Yeah.
So we can say all these different places are lokas: Los Angeles, Berkeley, San Francisco. Now the facts are, today you do not have a 17-year-old body.
Yes.
You do not have a 17-year-old hairline. That body with those desires in that environment, gone. Los Angeles, then Berkeley, young college kid. Did you party hardy as a college kid?
Not so much.
That's
A little bit.
Were you politically active? Did you march around?
No.
What did you do? Study.
I studied. And hung out with friends.
Studied and hung out with friends.
Yeah.
Another incarnation. Then you moved to San Francisco. What did you do in San Francisco?
I worked and I partied hardy.
You worked and you partied hardy. Okay, you were a little late bloomer.
Yeah.
But you get my point. The body had changed. The thoughts and feelings had changed. The desires had changed. And the environment had changed. So we can just look at these various stages of our lives as incarnations. It's perfectly valid to do that. Those of us who've had memories, prior lives, there's no question about reincarnation. Some of us have, some of us don't. Memory of prior lifetimes is not essential to liberation. All the material that you need, is right here, right now, in the mind. Now, what Vidyaranya is referring to here is a classic Vedantic meditation, which is called the negation of the Panchakosha, the five sheaths. And by sheaths, you can think of like lemongrass or an onion. I kind of like the image of Russian nesting dolls. You see one big one and you open it up and there's a smaller one inside, and you open it up and there's a smaller one inside, and you open it up and there's a smaller one. You've seen those Russian dolls? Mm-hmm. So this is map, not territory. There are different scriptures that divide it into different ways. This one is taken from the Upanishads. I think it's from Taittiriya, but I could be mistaken. But the five sheaths, the grossest one, meaning the densest vibration, we call the Annamaya Kosha. In Sanskrit, Annam means cooked rice. The food tube. What does the physical body do? It consumes a mountain of food in its 70, 80, 90 years. What does it do with it? It produces a mountain of poop. Munch, munch, munch. That's what the body does for 70, 80, 90 years. And in the end, whether you're buried in the ground or you go to the cremation ground, food for worms, comprised of skin, muscle, bone, blood, phlegm, filled with feces and urine, such as the glorious physical body. Barely tolerable without an enormous amount of maintenance. Go for a week or two without taking a bath, and the physical body becomes pretty disgusting, actually. That is the Annamaya Kosha. First nesting doll. Next one. Pranamaya Kosha. The vital air sheath. Prana means energy. It's the vital energy. And there are the five subsidiary Panchavayu, which govern breathing, excretion, digestion, circulation, and thinking. You watch young kids, got a ton of prana. I don't really realize that I've gotten as old as I have, except when I'm walking down the street. My friends walk slowly with me. But if I'm by myself, I keep having to move over to the slow lane and say, I'm slow, go ahead, and people pass me. Where's the prana? Next nesting doll, Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath. Now, this is fascinating to discover. The scriptures say the mind is the world and the world is the mind. My experience of the world is created by the mental sheath. So you may be having lunch with acquaintance and they say, oh, the world is just going to hell in a handbasket. There's so much violence and the politics, and it's just a terrible place. Aren't you upset? Aren't you frightened? No, actually, I live across from Lake Merritt, and it's really quite lovely this time of year. And I'm hanging out with people I really care for. I get all these God shots, the synchronicity in my life. My life is grace-filled. What's the difference? Manomaya kosha. So this is where feelings happen, and this is where judgment happens. When I determine something is pleasurable or not pleasurable, conducive or not conducive. And that's actually a very mechanical process. It's essentially based on the force of the past. Force of the past. Manomaya kosha. Next little law. Vijnanamaya kosha. The intellectual sheet. Which has the organs of perception, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin at their subtlest level. It has buddhi, this intellect. And it also has within it what we call karta. Who can tell me what the word karta means?
Doership.
Yes. It is a function in the Vijnanamaya kosha that attributes to the self the qualities of the not self. It is here in the subtle part of the Vijnanamaya kosha that the adhyasa, the superimposition, takes place. Now, this is important stuff. This function, this karta, is not evil. It's not bad. In fact, your equipment couldn't function without it. I got up this morning. I made my bed. I made the coffee. I did some reading. I talked with friends on the phone. I watched the news. All this is happening to my equipment. This karta, this coordinating function, can be damaged in people. Anybody here ever gotten drunk and had a blackout? You're all such goody goodies. Anybody know anybody who's blacked out? Yes, no?
Mm-hmm.
Shut off. Body keeps going, and they come to. God, you know what you did last night? No, what did I do? Oh, you got on the table and took all your clothes off and danced. Oh my God. It's like it happened to another person. Some people, that damage is more permanent. We have people who are schizophrenic, where part of the mind will splinter away and they hear voices. Their inner dialogue goes, and God or demons or the FBI is talking to them. They have to put tin foil on their head because people are talking to them. There are people who are crazy. And then I think the most fascinating form of this karta being broken is multiple personalities, where it's literally discrete different people acting in the world with no real connection. Sometimes one personality will have memory of another, but sometimes not. So it's not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing. It's just not you. Did that make sense? It is a function in the Vijnana Maya Kosha. Any questions about that? This used to drive me nuts because I'd be like at a camp and get the opportunity to have dinner with Swamiji, and he would say, "Pass me the chutney," and what? He's identified with the body. No, you don't have to talk funny. He had no doubts that he was Brahman. But at the level of Vyavahara, this karta is there to transact business. Just like you are not the karta, the agent, the doer in your dream. Last night I dreamt I was in this huge chorus, and I was in one section. I can't remember if it was the tenor or the bass section, and some of the singers had to sing a D, and the others of us had to do a step below a C, and I'm going through all this stuff, and I was trying to get the conductor's attention. Do you want me to sing the D or do you want me to sing the C? I wake up. Where does that person go? Gone. It's real. Something my mind created. All right. Jnanamaya Kosha. Smallest little doll. Anandamaya Kosha. The bliss sheath. The bliss sheath, also known as the causal body, the karana sharira, is our experience of pure ignorance. We experience the bliss sheath in ordinary life in two places. The first is when we satisfy a desire. So desire and object of desire become one. Oh, I'm happy. That's an experience of the Anandamaya Kosha. The mind has ceased its extroversion, its craving for a moment. How frequently you experience it, meaning how frequently I get what I want, is a karmic predicament. It is a function of punya, meritorious actions performed in other lifetimes. Some people's lives work pretty well. Others of us suffering, lots of it, because of papam performed in other lifetimes. but everyone experiences moments of happiness. We satisfy our desire. And there's a whole science of it. So the grosser the object of desire, the easier it is usually to acquire it, the more intense and immediate the pleasure, but the more fleeting. The subtler the object of desire, meaning a feeling state or an idea, the more difficult it is to acquire it. The intensity is a bit different, but it lasts longer. Easy way to look at it. What's the difference between having sex and being in love? Having sex, very gross form, 20 minutes. But if you take it to a subtler level and you meet someone that you care for, well, that can bring you great joy for a long time. How many of us, though, have lost a loved one? Either they break up or they pass away. Impermanent. Subtlest level is the level of ideas. You can get joy for a lifetime pursuing an idea. We have a great example of that. Your empathy work. For Nilam, that's a subtle desire, a subtle object of desire. It's a concept, it's an idea, it's an ideal. How long have you been doing this work?
6-7 years.
Yeah. Has it brought you great joy?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. You can pursue it for a lifetime. You can pursue it for a lifetime. Social justice. Equal rights. Suffrage, voting rights for people, all sorts of ideas. Now, what is the subtlest of all ideas that we can pursue?
God.
Yes, our idea of God. So if your object of desire is Lord Krishna, or Lord Shiva, or Jesus, or the formless God of the Jews and the Muslims, that can bring you a lifetime of joy. So, this is one area in which we experience the Anandamaya Kosha. Why do we call it the Anandamaya Kosha? Because there's still ignorance. I'm not really clear what's going on. I think God loves me and that's why I'm happy. I think my husband or wife loves me, that's why I'm happy. I think ice cream loves me. That's why I'm happy. Where's the other place where everybody experiences the Anandamaya Kosha with no effort?
Deep sleep.
Deep sleep, yes. Everyone loves deep sleep. Especially if your waking state life isn't working too well. And you want to spend more time napping, sleeping. Give me an Ambien. What is the experience of deep sleep? Pure ignorance. You don't even know that it's blissful. You can only determine that after you wake up through memory. Oh, I slept so soundly. So these are the 5 koshas, the 5 sheaths. All of them are anatman, not self. It is our attachment to and our identification with these various sheaths that bind us. Why do I get bound? The nature of the Anandamaya kosha is ignorance. Lodge there. Another thing that happens in that deep sleep, that Anandamaya kosha, is my vasanas in their seed state. But they still have the power to rob me of self-experience. And if I do not know who I am, if I do not know what the world is, the mind will continue to form a personal sense of self, and we identify with it. I'm Jim, and I'm good, I'm bad, I'm stupid, I'm smart, I'm lovable, I'm not lovable. I make mistakes, I don't make mistakes. And the world out there is joy-giving and misery-producing. So our job is to practice subject-object discrimination. I am not the Annamaya kosha. It's an object of awareness. When I was a child, the body was little. I knew it. When through adolescence, the body changed. I knew it. I'm an adult now. The body has changed again. I know it. I am the witness of the changes in the body. Not this. The energy. We watch it rise and fall. But I am not the energy. I'm the knower of the energy. Feelings and judgments. I am not sad. I am not depressed. I am not angry. I'm the knower of sorrow. I'm the knower of depression. I'm the knower of anger. Not self. Thoughts go by like your hand in front of your face. But I am not my thoughts. I'm the knower of thoughts. And I am not the ignorance of the Anandamaya kosha. I'm the knower. He sure packs a lot into one verse. All right, next one.
Syat syat panchikata bhutotho dehasthulo na sanjakaha linge tu rajasai pranay prana karmandriye saha. The gross body, which is the product of the quintuplicated elements, is known as the food sheath. That portion of the subtle body, which is composed of the 5 vital airs and the 5 organs of action, and which is the effect of the rajas aspect of Prakriti, is called the vital sheath.
So here he's breaking down a little bit the Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha. Remember what we talked about, the Panchakaranam. We did that last couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago. What is the Panchakaranam? When the 5 tanmatras, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, divide in half and then recombine. Don't have to worry about that too much. Basically, what Vedanta says is the physical world is simply the mental world grossified. That's all it is. So the physical body, the Annamaya Kosha, again, is just combined of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling in its grossified form. That's all it is. And then here the Pranamaya Kosha animates hands, feet, tongue, anus, and genitals, and the breath, all the functions of the body. But it's it's not. So, next verse.
Satvikai dhirn indriye sakam vimarshatma manomayah taraiva sakam vijnanam ayo dhirnishchayatmika. The doubting mind and the 5 sensory organs, which are the effect of sattva, make up the mind sheath. The determining intellect and the sensory organs make up the intellect sheath.
So he puts the sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin in the intellectual sheath. He puts them in the mental sheath. They occur in the gross body, yes. So again, it's like these nesting dolls. The example I like to use, on Halloween here in the United States, children will go out with a mask. So if I have a Barack Obama mask and I stick my tongue out through the mask, you can see my eyes through the mask. Oh, there's Barack Obama sticking his tongue out. But if you take the mask off, the eye holes do not see, the mouth cannot speak or stick out its tongue. Likewise, the physical body is basically, the sense organs are holes. Golayam is the Sanskrit word that the senses peep through. And they peep through on all these various levels. Now, he's talking a little bit about what's the distinction between direct perception, the determination of suchness or thatness by the intellect, and then the subsequent judgment of the mind. This is a fascinating topic. So, infants only have direct perception. So when Nilang was a baby, did you ever put in America we call them mobiles above the crib, and they spin and the baby goes, did they do that? Do you know if they did?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Because babies, who told them to focus? You have to learn that. So the very first thing that happens is perception. Then the intellect comes in, and then based on its various impressions through memory, it determines what something is. Then the mind comes in and evaluates it. So the example I like to use, so I'm out at Ocean Beach in San Francisco. I'm looking out towards the horizon and I see something white, direct perception. And the intellect starts to go to work. Is it a buoy? Is it the sail of a sailboat? Is it the top of a container ship with white containers? What is it? And after a while, I can see, aha, it's the sail of a sailboat. Then the mind comes in. Oh, it looks like it's about a 32-foot boat. My God, it's got beautiful lines. Gosh, that reminds me when I went sailing with my dad when I was a kid, how much I loved sailing. Oh, it would be so groovy to go sailing again. Boats are just cool. Direct perception, the vastness of something, then the mind evaluates. That's what we're doing all the time. So going back to what you were saying, if you remove the mind, you simply see the phenomenal world as it really is. That's some Buddhists teach that. So you just see a flower and all you see is the flower. Remember when we were talking about that? See, what Vidyaranya is saying, if you do not have memory in the subtle intellect, you won't know it's a flower.
Right. That's like a wordless observation.
Yeah. So it's interesting to know this ladder of perception. Now, the mind is the world and the world is the mind, and in the mind is my suffering. So to the degree I can reduce the stories, the judgments, labeling things as good and bad, and just have direct perception and the suchness of the intellect, life becomes a lot simpler and a lot more joyful. How do I do that? I learn not to believe my mind. Let me give you a concrete example. I was talking with a friend, we were at a meeting, and there was a person there who was, the world would say, very inappropriate, behaving in a very antisocial way. Ego would say, oh, get rid of him, move your seat. A yogi would say, I have a judgment. That's just my mind. Can I stay present and just drop the judgment? Stay with direct perception. See it for what it is. It doesn't mean the person's behavior may not have been antisocial. But I don't have to be annoyed by it. Wonderful practices implied by this exegesis of this. All right, next verse.
Jim,
Jim,
why
I
does-
have a question.
Who's that?
It's Fang.
Hi, Fang.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
I'm well.
I have a question on this, and I want to understand if I'm just misunderstanding a concept you mentioned a while ago of, for example, you said just pay no attention to the mind as if it's, chit chat at a party in the background. My question is that contradictory to, because I feel like when I first started this process, I was unconscious of most of my thoughts, right? Like I was thinking, but I wasn't aware of what I was thinking. Now I feel like I'm conscious of almost every single thought. But then if I'm to, for example, just not paying attention to the mind and the thoughts just become like chat at a party in the background, what if that eventually just goes back into unconsciousness, like not being aware of the thoughts, or am I just not understanding that properly?
If you're meditating and you're staying conscious, you will not go backwards. If, on
Okay.
the other hand, you get caught up in Netflix or video games or smoking dope every night or spending all your time criticizing other people or trying to please them, then what you're doing is getting away from what's really going on. So I wouldn't say they're contradictory, but they're paradoxical. We practice at different levels and the practices evolve. So of course, the first thing you want to do is make what is unconscious conscious. Because their thoughts, if they're in the unconscious, you're going to probably act out on them unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they become conscious, now what do I do with all that stuff? Just don't do something, sit there. Just don't do something, stand there. Be present to them. You don't necessarily have to go causation hunting. But for example, if you find, oh my gosh, I came from a profoundly dysfunctional home, it's probably good to know that. That doesn't mean you call your folks up on the phone and scream and yell at them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we're saying. But I don't think you have to worry about it as long as you're staying conscious. Now, how do you know if you're suppressing? There's a very clear key to it. You will become depressed. Why? Because you're pressing down the thoughts. That's a clear sign. If you're being present and living in the now and not taking your mind seriously, what you'll have is peace and some joy and some aliveness. Is that making sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Do not try to look for absolute consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I make no claim of consistency in my teaching. It all
Thanks, Jim.
depends on where the student is at that particular time.
That makes sense. Thank you, Jim.
Good question. Now, what were you going to share?
I just noticed the English translations said the doubting mind is an effect of sattva, which is an interesting phrasing.
Well, what he's saying here is sattva is the knowing of things, rajas is the movement of things, tamas is the inertness of things. So he's basically saying the sthula sharira is mostly tamas. But rajas is the prana, which causes everything to move on the gross and the subtle plane. But the mind illumines things.
So the doubting mind is like asking questions and getting to know things.
Well, and you can have doubts. I mean, he's talking largely also of a person in ignorance. But you know stuff with your mind. You know, why has the James Webb telescope found a galaxy that's too old, it shouldn't be there? I want to know. It's 13.5 billion years old and it's fully formed. It's not supposed to be fully formed. I want to know. So that's the sattvic part of us, wanting to know things. That's how I interpret. Does anybody else have an idea on that? All right, next verse.
कारणे सत्त्वमानन्द मयो मोदादि वृत्तिभिः तत्त कोशैस्तु तादात्म्यात् आत्मा तत्तन्मयो भवेत्. The impure sattva, which is in the causal body, along with joy and other vrittis, mental modifications, is called the bliss sheath. Due to identification with the different sheaths, the self assumes their respective natures.
Yes. So it doesn't really do it. I'm not sure I like his particular use of Sanskrit. It needs the word eva in there. What's eva mean in Sanskrit? Like seemingly, like. It doesn't seemingly?
Mhm.
Yeah. So where does the identification really take place? It's in the Vijnanamaya kosha. The self does not get identified. The intellectual sheath attributes to the self the qualities of the non-self. Now, read again what he said about the Anandamaya kosha. I got distracted.
The impure sattva, which is in the causal body.
Okay, that's it. So, the nature of the self is Sat Chit Ananda, pure existence, pure awareness, bliss absolute. Why do we call it bliss absolute? Because when the mind is freed from the sorrow of craving, the rajas, it comes home and I get a kiss of the bliss of Brahman. So I get a taste of my own real nature in the Anandamaya kosha. Problem is, it's still in ignorance, so I don't realize it's myself, and then I attribute it to the phenomenon. Rather than mature vairagya, Valium, Ambien, heroin, or objects, so I can taste the bliss of my own self-nature. In Gita, Krishna has this marvelous saying. He says, men, people, in every way only worship me. Just they don't know it and they use the wrong method. Meaning, Krishna meaning the self. When I'm like, oh, I'm so lonely, I want a partner. What am I seeking? Krishna. I just don't know it. And when I get the partner, I think it's the beloved person. No. Krishna. Oh, I really want that job. Oh, I really, really want that job. Oh, had great interviews. I hope I get it. Oh, I really got the job. No, you got Krishna. You just didn't know it. Desire, object of desire. Krishna. When I do it in ignorance, it's called the Anandamaya Kosha. Now, wonderful synchronous moment. Last night in Gita, I'm getting towards the end of the 4th chapter, Vyasa, our poet, goes into various ways in which people worship the infinite. And he says, some people do Deva Yajna, others do Brahma Yajna. Deva Yajna, sacrificing to the gods. Brahma Yajna, sacrificing to Brahman. What's the difference? Unlike the person in ignorance, when the yogi encounters an object of the senses, she knows just what is going on. Oh, I like widgets. Force of the past maturing. I think I'm going to dance with the widget. And when desire and object of desire become one. Oh, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That really stopped my mind. The Devas in Gita, as it's used in 4th chapter, is the presiding principle governing any field of human endeavor. So these are mediated experiences of the bliss of my own self-nature. Brahma yajna, sacrifice to the infinite. This world, trinkets and baubles. I'm going to just plunge my mind within. Oh, Shiva. A non-mediated experience of the bliss of myself. Once you understand that the world is not bad, the world is not scary, the world is not evil, it isn't going to bind us. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, the world is God. And the only pleasure in the world is myself. Then the objects of the world become a meditation. What's a meditation? When you do a mantra. Who here uses a mantra? When you use a mantra, what's the objective?
Stop the rest of the mind.
Yeah. You use this object of attention, the mantra, a single point the mind. A single pointed mind is as good as no mind. If you're being with your breath, or you're scanning the body, or you're walking in nature. In other words, the objects of desire can become meditations if you're woke. Then the world cannot bind us. Which comes along, you know it's inherently void. It's shunyata. The only value it has is what I attribute to it. It's very mechanical. It's just the force of the past. So the assignment here, own your ananda. We mean ice cream, good music, friendship, making love. They all do the same thing to my mind. Yes. It varies in intensity and it varies duration, depending on how badly I wanted it, how gross or subtle the object is, how completely it satisfies my particular desire. But if you understand that it's yourself, the mind will not attach to the object. The object then becomes a meditation. It's a means to experience myself. And this whole idea of Deva Yajna. Who here, for example, likes kirtan, likes to chant? Yeah, Deva Yajna. Get you high to go chant the name of the Lord. I find it far too noisy. I mean, I go, but no, not my thing at all. Very important point. What's the difference between the Anandamaya Kosha and Atmaramana? All right, very important point. So, along with paying attention to the point of pleasure and owning your own ananda, we also suggest you do the opposite. Pay attention to your suffering. Ego will say, I'm suffering because I'm not getting what I want. And then ego has two strategies. Pull out the bouquet of flowers. And if that doesn't work, I get out the baseball bat. If that doesn't work, I get out the flowers again. Manipulation. To try to control people, places, things, and situations. To make it my way to get what I want, because I think that's what's going to make me happy. And understand when I am suffering, it is the craving itself that hurts. Ego says, get what you want, or at least try. Yoga says, endeavor to let go of the craving. So the two practices go together. Watching our suffering and owning our ananda. You don't need to really change your behavior so much out of will. If you do this exercise, your behavior will change out of insight. Very important discussion on the Anandamaya Kosha. All right, what verse are we on for next week?
37.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.